Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode. This time we are going to be covering Marti again. Just because last match was that tank one, so I would like a more regular match going on here. Let me make sure my volume is fine. It seems to be. Yes, indeed. Alright, so there's nothing of particular note to point out here other than we have a mid lane Scotty and we have a solo lane Ixchel. Okay, that is the only really relevant thing. Now, this is really relevant. I'm going to go ahead and let this run at the same time. The reason why that's relevant to a hunter is this means that we are going to have a little bit less tankiness. Ixchel, even if she builds protections, isn't going to be as durable as your average warrior will, so it's something I'm going to need to keep in mind. Also, you will notice I am going for the ability-based penetration build here. I have Bluestone and I am clearly working towards Transcendence. This is because Anubis steals protections away, so he typically is running around with higher than average protections for a mage, and Fenrir in the middle of his ult also doubles his protections, which can make him very difficult to kill for that period of time. So for this reason, I am running with the penetration build operating off of ability-based damage. Again, we also have the standard Kumbhakarna and the Mulan as well. Okay, that is why I'm going for this. Again, keep in mind that you as a hunter are starting at the green and letting the tank decide how much they want to take on at one time. That is a polite way of doing it. So we go on ahead and clear this through, and we do a fairly nice job on this, right? That was decently quick. I get confused for a second. I got lost, but that's fine. I hesitate to use my Acid Rain. I really should have used it right away, to be honest. First off, this would have died slightly faster. Second off, you'll notice that it comes up just after we get back into lane. It would have been up by the time we got back into lane. You're going to see 2, 1. I'm in position right here, but I wait like half a second. It's not a huge deal, but it is a very minor mistake on my part. We are clearly also way faster than the enemy team is, and I'm just working on the Bastion while Horus tries to figure out where the hell they are, and he goes and attacks them at the purple buff a little bit there. He just does some poke, which is fine. I warned him to be careful that I am not there behind him. I just wanted to make him aware of the fact that I was still in lane, which he respects. He comes back. I do say he rocks. That is genuine. He did do some good poke there. You can see the Kumbhakarna in trouble. The Fenrir makes a mistake by announcing himself with his second ability. Understandable, because he wanted to use it for the extra damage, but, you know, just for future reference, you probably shouldn't be using noise-generating abilities so much when you're about to gank someone. Bakasura gets a great early kill on Fenrir. That is really huge for our team, because that is going to give Bakasura quite a decent amount of a lead. You'll notice I don't immediately join them at the jungle buff. The reason why is because I want them to have the smalls. I come over here in time for the large, come back. I didn't want to split the smalls 3 ways because they offer up less golden experience. The large was a bit more manageable to split up 3 ways, so that's why I did that there. It wouldn't have mattered either way. I could have gotten a little more golden experience. Bakasura and Horus would have gotten a little less. Not the biggest deal, but I did get some good damage on the Bastion in the meantime, so it works out quite well. Right, so we push another wave under tower. There's Bakasura getting killed by mid, which means I know where he is, right? Where the mid is, because Scotty just called that out. So I'm not too concerned about that, right? I can still see Fenrir and Anubis, so I know that this aggro is correct. That's probably actually why the Horus aggressed on them at that point, is because he knew for a fact neither the jungle nor the mid lane was coming over. Now Fenrir leaves, he's clearly coming over here. I aggress though because first off, Neith is level 2, so she's not going to be hitting us that hard, and second off, Kumbhakarna is so low that he either needs to back or he will die. So I'm not concerned about the possibility of Fenrir coming over, and here he is, and you will see we just absolutely slap him with some good damage there. Again, Neith just hit level 3, so we're fairly ahead by this point in terms of level here, so I wasn't really that worried. If Neith had been a higher level and Kumbhakarna was still kicking around, I would have been more concerned, right? I throw out some abilities for the Bastion. Fenrir and Kumbhakarna are attacking the Horus. I come in to try to help. I'm aware of the fact that Neith is coming in. She does, in fact, hit me with a nice root. I just want to disengage at this particular point, right? My only real goal was to get Horus out of there. I reinforced this by saying retreat. I don't know why Kumbhakarna chased us that far. He really didn't need to. He wasted that mana. Yes, we were rooted, but we really... Neith was not there for that, so that root was functionally useless there. Didn't even really delay us because Neith had gone around for the purple buff, so kind of a waste on his part. Not really sure what his goal there was. Checking how much more gold I need for that, because with its tendency to not refresh the prices, sometimes I get worried. Because what I want to do as a hunter is, since I am ahead, I would like to stay in lane until I get the gold I need for Transcendence. I accidentally used my beads. I misclicked there. Or I miskey, I guess, would be the better and more descriptive term. Horus goes back because he's level 5 at this point, as he should, right? Make sure he lets me know. He says bye. Falling back would have worked as well. I continue to farm. Again, I am looking for that 1900 gold while I have the mana. I see Kumbhakarna here is, he's still here. I'm not too surprised. He hasn't hit level 5 and he doesn't know that Horus backed, so I'm not surprised he's still around. I wait because I do want this next wave. I anticipate after this next wave I will have what I need. Horus calls out missing. Based on the fact that I just saw Anubis under tower, I would have to guess that he's talking about Fenrir. So they pressure me hard because I'm alone in lane. But here I can see Horus and Bakasur coming in, so I'm not that worried about it. And here we are. Great ult by Bakasur. I throw out some abilities here. Unfortunately, I'm out of mana because I can't use my ults, but I do get to down the Kumbhakarna with the poison from my poison shot, which is really nice. And after we clear this wave really quick with my allies, I'm going to be backing to get Transcendence. I'm going to throw out an Acid Rain here to do so, and just clean up this Order Bastion really quick just because I really can, and that's going to set me up for a huge advantage when I come back to lane, right? So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to be building Transcendence at this particular point. Off I go. It's a little arrogant to back right there. If Fenrir had ganked at that time, I probably would have been in trouble because my beads were down and I didn't have nearly enough mana to use my ult to get out, so that was a bit of an arrogant move. I also make a very mild mistake. I get multi-potions. I really probably should have just stuck to health potions. Minor quibble, but you'll see me not really needing the mana that much. Obviously, I just built Transcendence, but I also don't... Keep in mind, I am ahead, so my need for... And I misclicked there, too. My need for mana at this particular point isn't terribly high. I realize that both Kumbhakarna and Neith are missing. I go to place my ward, but I'm not leaving lane because I can't guarantee Neith is actually left. I can actually see her back there clearing the purple buff, so I know she's at least still in the area, and I'm, at this point, just looking for my stacks. So I'm not really looking to rotate at this point because that slows down stack acquisition, right? I grabbed this for the extra stack because I saw it on the jungle. It's why I spazzed out. I saw it on the jungle and I'm like, wait, that's a free stack. Unfortunately, Horus dies in mid. I don't know if Neith had any hand in that. I don't know if she used her ult there. I don't know if that was entirely natural. I have no idea, so I'm kind of keeping that in the back of my mind. Neith is a bit odd as a laning opponent where she can contribute to fights she's nowhere near due to her ult, whereas I do not have that advantage. Now, at this point, I am wanting to pressure her a little bit. Considering I don't know where Fenrir or Anubis are, I probably shouldn't be. But Ixchel seems to be indicating that they might be heading her way, right? She was talking about her solo laner, but maybe she was gonna get a gank there. I see Anubis and Kumbhakarna in mid. I still don't know where Fenrir is, but I know that Neith is backflipped, so I can kill her with that ult. Now I'm in a dangerous position. You'll see me back up right away, because I don't know where Fenrir is. My ult is down. My beads are up, which is fine, but I'm going to be taking this a little bit safe, right? I throw out some abilities to clear that wave really quick before my wave gets to it, just to ensure. By the way, this is where you can really see where I don't actually need the mana portion of the multi-potion. Now, I am actually going to be going for this, not for the buff. I don't really care so much about that. I specifically just want the stacks, right, and the gold. So we get that, grab the buff while I am there, right? They don't seem to need any help in mid, so that's why I don't rotate. I thought about rotating while clearing the buff, but again, there was no need. They had that well in hand. You can see they absolutely slapped down pretty much everyone who was in mid. You can also see I'm almost done with my stacks. I see her use her ult, which now means that it's down, which is something good to note. That's a minute and a half, so mentally I'm making a note that at approximately the 10-minute mark, that will be back up. So I go on ahead and do as much damage as I can to the tower, and she contests me. I take a bit of an interesting gamble here, or I attack her. Since I know she can't ult me, I know she's not going to be able to pull off a stunt. I don't leave, though, because she's low on health, and I know I'm running the multi-potions. Again, a regular health potion would have made me more secure about this. Also, my ult is up in 7 seconds, so I have a really good opportunity if I can just get that poke. I whiff my abilities there, but we get the tower, so I'm like, alright, that's fine. I see Bakasor coming over here, so the possibility exists that Fenrir is over here, so I just go to meet him, right? Just looking around. He's at the purple. He goes in, which I don't blame him for. We're ahead. Fenrir tries to attack me. I ult away, and then I become aware of the fact that Anubis is behind. Now, I'm in serious trouble, right? He's just used his ult. I am low on health, and this is an Anubis at the equivalent level, right? I get absolutely gobsmacked here. This was Bakasor and I being too aggressive. It's just that simple, right? But now I did survive long enough to get my Soul Eater and some wards, so I'm pretty happy about that. That's a pretty good thing. That's a great thing, actually. I'm also almost done with my stacks, which is absolutely fantastic, considering we're at 10 minutes now. Also, Neat's ult is up again. I go on ahead and buy another multi-potion, because why the hell not? Maybe it'll come in handy, maybe it'll save my life. Probably not, since by this point I've already recognized that I probably should have gone with just regular health potions anyways, but here we are. I already have them, so why not spend my last 50 gold for that? You know, it's not going to make a big difference. So they, you know, they disengage from the fight. They aren't sticking around, so I clear this for almost my last stacks, right? I'm hoping to clear the purple buff and get my last stacks that way. You will notice I do not take this. That is because that is very important for junglers to have for golden experience, and he's on par with Fenrir. I don't want to cripple my Bakasor. I already took the green, which was a little bit out of my place, so to speak. That isn't something you necessarily normally want to do. I just wanted to finish my stacks, and I was half expecting Horus to pick up the buff afterwards. Now I'm back in this lane specifically just to defend it and see where the enemy is going next. I know Fenrir went towards middle. There's Kumbhakarna, there's Anubis. We have Scotty, Bakasor, and Horus there. I don't need to be in right lane because I haven't seen Neith, so she might be on her way middle. Either way, I don't need to be in right lane. So I clear this while I'm waiting to see what's going on here. My teammates are aggressing in the middle lane. And here's Fenrir. So I go on ahead and initiate on him because, you know, I don't want my allies to get slapped, and I'm ahead of him by 2 levels, right? I go on ahead and do some shots at the tower, but the Anubis scares me off. Again, Anubis is scary. He's only 1 level down, and he can hit me pretty hard, right? I see Neith in mid, so I'm going to commit to the fight. I get some good damage on Kumbhakarna. I do an ult on Anubis, lower him down. Absolutely fantastic teamwork there. And at this particular point, I realize, hey, I might be in a little bit of trouble. So I go on ahead and beads my way out of here, which Neith times her ult wrong, which is more of a miracle on my part, but then I overstay. And you can see where I overstayed that. I turned around to try to participate more, and I get killed for it. That was fairly justified. I should have just ran backwards and just left. That was entirely a terrible choice on my part. Gave Neith at least some progress back. I was way ahead of her. I was ahead of her by, like, what, 4 levels? And when she killed me, I think she got 2 level ups for me. So it was a huge mistake on my part. I shouldn't have turned around to continue the fight. I mean, they're going to wind up still pressing the fight onwards and getting more out of it, which is good. You'll notice I didn't bother building multi-potions because at this particular point, by the time I'm done with those multi-potions, my Soul Eater should be done, so I didn't buy any more of those. Now, we're getting called for the Gold Fury, which is a good call. We're ahead at this point. We've just won a team fight. We can see Fenrir there, pretty heavily damaged, so he's not really going to be too big of a threat. Anubis has used his ult, so we know that's not going to be up to try to steal this. So we're pretty much in the clear to take that. Get my objective killer diamond there. Proud moment for your boy. And off we go, right? Now, what I'm going to be doing here is I'm just going to clear the oracles more to be in a position where I can go to either mid lane or right lane, because I see the minions under tower. I'm going to go over there. I saw Neath heading middle, but I just want to push up my wave a little bit here, primarily because at this particular point in time, I'm not really sure what my team... Well, I wasn't sure originally what my team was doing. They wound up pressing middle. I changed my mind, obviously. I go towards middle. I should have been there earlier, which is why I'm apologizing. I absolutely should have recognized the fact that I would have been needed there earlier. I go on ahead and go on Mulan because she was clearly taking a lot of tower damage. They do wind up taking the tower, which is fine. I do as much damage as I can to Mulan while trying not to get killed by Anubis. I don't know if he has his ult back yet. He should, but I don't know if he's used it since. So I'm treating Anubis with some caution here. This is why I backed up when he really started to get engaged in the fight. Looking to press forward here. I'm looking to see what they're doing. I know they can't take the Gold Fury because we already have that. There's Anubis there, and I don't know where Kumbhakarna went. There's Kumbhakarna, there's Neath. So there's all still hanging around mid lane, so that's something I can keep an eye on, right? There's Kumbhakarna and Fenrir in mid. I'm going to head over to right lane for a bit, just to make sure that Neath isn't returning over there. I'm going to try to press down my tower. I'm going to let him solo clear that. Again, I don't need the experience as much as he does. I am a level ahead of my opponent. I am a level ahead of Neath. So I don't need it as much as he does. Yeah, we're the same level, but he's also the same level as Fenrir, so I'm going to let him have that. I'm going to clear some waves here while trying to figure out where the hell the enemy is. I see Kumbhakarna in mid, so I'm going to assume we're looking for another fight there. I go on ahead and decide to take this out while trying to figure out what everyone's doing. Horus is chasing Fenrir into the jungle, which is a big risk, so I'm kind of taking note of that. We're also splitting up a little bit here. Scotty is going for the green buff, but we're seeing a convergence here in mid, so we got to take care of this whole fiasco. Now, I make a mistake here. I commit really hard to the Kumbhakarna because I'm going to be really honest. The possibility he had his passive existed. I registered that. I just didn't care. I got kind of consumed with bloodlust there. A familiar feeling for, I think, a lot of SMITE players. I absolutely should not have gone so hard on that Kumbhakarna. Right, I'm grabbing, by the way, the Crusher for more ability damage and the attack speed, of course. It's not a huge setback because you'll see I'm still 2 levels ahead of Neath even at this point. So I'm not that concerned about it, but it is a setback, and it was a terrible decision on my part. So they're looking for the Pyromancer, which is the correct choice. I'm going to run off to try to reinforce that, right? As the hunter, that's kind of my job. They're going to clear it before I even get there, though. But it is important that I still be there even shortly after the fact, just in case they get attacked. But they back up immediately. There's no risk of them being attacked. You can see they separated right away. I'm just going to throw down a quick Acid Rain down middle, just for some golden experience here. And then I'm going to clear the oracles. I'm clearing the oracles. This is not this particular time about basically killing time, waiting to see what happens. This is very specifically because I know the Gold Fury is coming up soon, and I want that vision. This is the first time of 3 times that I have cleared the oracles specifically for its vision. The other 2 times were for... The first time was for Stacks Golden Experience. The second time was more to bide time and do something while trying to figure out what my next move should be. This is Golden Experience purely, and of course I want the purple buff, obviously. I see Anubis here, I see Neath in right lane, I see Kumbhakarna, so I'm thinking to myself, alright, they might be after the Gold Fury soon. Right, I see Horus and Scotty coming in, and they're going pretty hard on Fenrir. I see Anubis there, I see Neath. I don't like this fight, but I really need to be here. We do have the advantage, so maybe we can pull this off, right? Scotty scares off Fenrir, and of course, Horus scares off Neath. I go in with Horus, and he positions that really well. He doesn't go right on top of them, which probably would have killed us with Anubis right there, but he does put us in a position where we can press a nice attack. right? I have to ult because I didn't have to ult. I thought that the Neath was going to hit me with the root, and I was going to be in some pretty serious trouble. Turns out that is not the case. I cleared this buff, mostly because, again, I'm not really sure how hard my team wants to commit to that. I'm not even sure how hard I want to commit to that. They kill Anubis, and that's pretty much the go signal, right? We've got to kill. Now it's a 5v4 no matter what they do, so we're going in, right? I use my grass to increase my move speed. We call Gold Fury instead, which isn't a bad decision. We probably could have sieged the tower, but it had a good chance of going south. Going for the Gold Fury is not going to have that same chance of going south. The enemy team is also distracted by Bakasur and Horus, and they are going to need help after we clear the Gold Fury here. So we take that, and off I go to help him out, run through my grass for a nice move speed boost, and then I want to see if I can save Horus. Horus obviously did a great job saving Bakasur, and I have, of course, reinforcements with Ixchel and Scotty here, so we just absolutely go ham on these people, right? And I realize that the Mulan does not have as many protections as I was expecting her to have, because I'm fairly shredding through her. Scotty absolutely tears through her in about a heartbeat. And now I'm just trying to catch up to the enemy so I can root one of them with my stinger, but unfortunately there's no way, right? He dashes. Neath, I'm sure, has her backflip up. Anubis is there, and he's scary, so I'm leaving. Right, I'm going to go ahead and clear their jungle so I can get the golden experience and deny that golden experience. Deny that the Fenrir the golden experience. Clearing the oracles for the same reason. We hardly need the vision on that, right? Just wiping out as much jungle stuff as I can. Alright, clear this. It's all about that golden experience. I get another level up, which is great. Now I'm 3 levels ahead of Neath. And I'm looking at pretty close to another item, right? I've got my purple buff here. Just respawn. It's delicious. Clear this. It's a lovely time. I see a potential fight in mid. So I'm on my way cautiously because I don't know where Neath is and I don't know where Fenrir is. This is in fact why I put down a ward there. I wanted to make sure I wasn't about to get slapped. Turns out Mulan is trying to do a sneak attack. I decide I'm going to go for the Anubis because he's more dangerous, but the Mulan accidentally intercepts my attack, so I'm just going to go ahead and take her out because she's cut off right now, right? And there she goes. Fenrir goes in. I beads to continue the attack a little bit harder. You know, Ixchel picks that up, which is great because I whiffed my last shot. Scotty kills the Neath. We're looking at a great opportunity for the mid tower, which I'm absolutely going to work on. I don't have a lot of penetration at this point, but I'm still going to be the best person here, possibly other than Scotty, with Calder, to take this tower. Of course, we get the minions in, so that takes care of that. I throw my acid rain down mid lane, more to push a wave down into the Phoenix and deny them more golden experience. I'm going over to reinforce Bakasur because I know for a fact that the enemy team is just now respawning, so we should have time to take this while they're distracted with Scotty. I'm keenly aware of the fact that Scotty will probably die. She actually winds up retreating, so because she retreats, I'm leaving, right? If Scotty had stayed, I expected her to die there because obviously the enemy team was respawning. She was right at the Phoenix line, and they would have all come back fresh, and Scotty doesn't exactly have a bevy of escape options. But she made the strategic choice and left in time. She did keep the Kumbhakarn busy long enough. And now we're theoretically going for Fire Giant. The fact that this ward is here does make me a little nervous. I go on ahead and commit anyways. Unfortunately, the Fire Giant decides that I'm the tastiest looking morsel after Ixchel leaves the circle. So I take a bunch of unnecessary damage, which is, as you know, it just happens. The enemy team is looking to potentially steal. I'm going to commit to this because I have my ult, and then I get surprised by Kumbhakarna, so I ult. More to make sure that I don't get, you know, crowd controlled. We do get it, partially due to that. And we're looking to commit. I'm not sure why we're looking to commit to this, to be honest. I go on ahead and go hard on the Anubis because I have that built-in anti-heal on my Stinger. I'm trying to keep him out. I throw down some grass to keep an eye on him. We've got 2 of them, so it's a good, advantageous fight for us. But he just wound up fully fleeing, so we're looking to chase this, right? Now, I'm not actually expecting too much here because Kumbhakarna, right, he actually puts me to sleep. But the Scotty blinks past him and absolutely slaps the Anubis, which was a great play. It was a fantastic play by the Scotty. Just a shout out there. Great ult by Horus, pops right in here. Gets the advantage of having not get shot immediately. Right, I'm going on to this Kumbhakarna. Right, there he goes, and then the enemy team surrenders, alright? Now, the purpose of this particular match was a more general match. Again, the last one was an enemy man team, which I don't think fully exemplifies. It's too much of an idealized situation for Marti, right? Frankly. And then we're going to, of course, talk about the builds a little bit here. Because the builds are important, right? So, what happened here? Why did the Neath have such a hard time? Well, for one thing, Marti is absolutely fantastic with the Bluestone Pendant, obviously, right? The second thing is that instead of building a stacking item of some variety, Neath went for Atlanta's Bow, which is a fairly interesting early game choice, especially since Neath, unlike a lot of other hunters, doesn't really have a huge need for any kind of move speed boost. You see, Atlanta's Bow really does well with hunters that have some way of self-buffing their own move speed. Danzaburou makes great use of Atlanta's Bow because he gets to use that movement speed in his circle to functionally get a hastened katana effect while he's auto-attacking in that circle. He already has that effect anyways in the circle, but he gets to emphasize it with Atlanta's Bow. Still not something I would recommend for as a second item for Danzaburou, but as an example. Hell, Marti can do the same thing in grass. He doesn't get the hastened katana effect, but he does get a really nice boost in his movement speed, and if you combine that with Atlanta's Bow, it's actually kind of difficult to get away from a Marti Chorus in that situation. I keep calling him Cortus for some reason, but anyways. Neath, she has her backflip, and she doesn't have any particular abilities that would justify the use of Atlanta's Bow. One can argue that Spirit Arrow could be effective with this because she moves at normal speed while firing that ability, and a boost to her move speed means that her functional ability to chase while firing Spirit Arrow off also increases, which is true. Technically true of Unravel, but that's an AoE, so it's not as important. But quite frankly, a lot of the times, Neath doesn't need a movement speed boost to keep that effective. In fact, a more effective item for her is Hydra's Lament, because you can fire off the Spirit Arrow and then nearly guarantee that you're going to hit the next auto attack unless they have an escape that doesn't care that they're rooted or they beads it. Right? Far more effective than Atlanta's Bow. So I'm not a big fan of Atlanta's Bow on Neath, at least. Furthermore, as a second item, it doesn't really provide her with any serious benefit. There's a reason why most hunters start with either Devourer's Gauntlet or Transcendence. They provide to the hunter one of two really significant stats. For Transcendence, which is why a lot of people build it on Marti, it's mana. He gets a lot of mana, which means he gets to use his abilities more often. Same motivation for Skadi. Skadi has some great ability damage, and as a very direct result of this, she can really pull off Transcendence quite well. And in fact, Skadi can use Atlanta's Bow in the same way Marti can. When she runs over her ice, she gets a move speed boost, same as Marti. So if she runs Atlanta's Bow, usually in the back half of the game, she actually can be very difficult to get away from once she gets a kill, right? Or an assist. But anyways, that's the point of building Transcendence. Devourer's Gauntlet, it's lifesteal. Functionally, it's almost like building actual health, right? I know it's not quite the same, but that's kind of the dynamic the two items have always had for hunters. Devourer's Gauntlet for better health management, and Transcendence for better mana management, essentially, is what that comes down to. Neath built neither of these. And Neath does very well with both. I'm rather fond of building Transcendence as a second item on Neath, as you've seen before. But Atlanta's Bow as a second item doesn't provide either of these. It provides some good damage, it provides some good attack speed, absolutely. However, it does not provide mana or health. You can argue that the Leather Cowl provides at least some lifesteal, but that is a very small amount of lifesteal. It can give you an edge if you're looking to build Devourer's Gauntlet, and it gives you a little bit of boost of lifesteal in that regard, which can allow you to outpace an enemy's same self-healing, but by and large, the Atalanta's bow really doesn't emphasize that either way, and doesn't provide any other kind of sustain advantage. Alright? And then she goes into Bloodforge, which the Scotty does as well, but you have to understand that the Scotty began doing very well very early on, mostly because Scotty plays extremely well against Anubis. That is a terrible matchup for Anubis, because it used to be worse for him. Now that he can move while casting Locust Breath, it's not as bad, but he moves at a much lower rate of speed when casting that, so he still is going to have a really hard time getting away from Calder or getting away from the decreased movement speed of Scotty's first ability, her Ice Spear, and then he can slide around on the ice for about 12 years. It's just a really bad matchup for him. Even his ult, Scotty can throw her ice down beneath her and run away from that a little faster than average. He would need to hit his wrap for that, and if he isn't hitting those, and I didn't see very many mummy wraps that he hit in that match, he probably wasn't hitting those. So, a pretty great matchup for Scotty as a result of those. Yes, Calder can sometimes die very quickly if the Anubis plays correctly. Locust Breath hits multiple times, so does Hands of the Dead, as does his ult. But you could very easily also bait that out and then throw a ulted Calder at Anubis, which is going to root him as well, by the way, which gives him 0 options for getting away from Scotty's shots, and Scotty, being a hunter, has higher single target damage than Anubis is going to have as a mage. So for Scotty building a third item, Bloodforge, this makes a lot of sense. She was ahead at the time she started building that. She might have even been originally anticipating building Soul Eater. I don't know, personally, but she might have originally planned on Soul Eater, and when she started to get ahead really early on, she might have changed plans to Bloodforge for a higher amount of power and a nice burst in movement speed whenever she gets the Blood Shield. Neith built Bloodforge as her third item despite being pretty far behind. Alright, again, by the end of the match, she was 4 levels down already, and for quite a bit of the match, I was on average 2-ish levels ahead of her, give or take a level, depending on the point of time in the match you're talking about, but I was pretty consistently around 2 levels ahead of her. She could not afford to take the time to build a Bloodforge. Bloodforge, again, is a very expensive item, comparatively speaking. She would have been far better off building something a little bit less expensive, right? Something that would have given her a nice spike in damage some way. A cheaper spike in damage. Right, I'm fine with the Crusher. That's great on Neith, actually. It's a must-buy on Neith, honestly. And she would have been better off building that third item than Bloodforge, in my opinion, but that is why Neith built Bloodforge third and did not really recover, whereas Scotty built Bloodforge third and really dominated. Both built it for the lifesteal and the power spike. Neith probably built it for the increased movement speed as well. I know Scotty did, because again, Scotty does not have a lot of escape options. But yeah, it was an absolutely fantastic matchup for a lot of us. The Marti versus Neith is fairly neutral, slightly in Neith's favor, because obviously Marti has very few options to get away from the root. The only reason I did as well against the Neith as I did is primarily not even due to her gameplay. Her gameplay was fine. It was just the build. It is what it largely comes down to. Again, Neith doesn't get quite the same amount of benefits out of Atalanta's bow as compared to other hunters. She does far better with Transcendence, as an example, or a variety of other items as a second item. She would have done far better with Transcendence. She probably should have built Transcendence. But on that note, let's move on to the really questionable decision of Mulan. Now, I'm not going to comment on Mulan's first 2 items. Bluestone into Soul Eater, classic Mulan, works very effectively. Why the hell did she build Gladiator's Shield when her laning opponent was Ixchel? That makes no damn sense. Okay, now Ixchel made a really interesting gamble here, where she built Chronos Pendant as her second item. This is a really strong pick on mages, but you have to be really damn confident in your skills, because it is a very expensive item. And if you lose the first fight or two, that might take a little bit too long, and you might start to fall farther behind because of how much time it can take you to build up for that. It's not as bad as it used to be, obviously. I believe they reduced its price by like 100 gold a couple of updates ago. But regardless, it's still a very comparatively expensive item. Okay? Great for solo lane because not only are you getting that cooldowns, but you're getting some great MP5. Okay? But that was a gamble by the XL. Clearly it paid off. She went 9-1. Did an amazing job, right? That cannot be argued. But once the Mulan built Gladiator's Shield, she sealed her fate. The XL built Breastplate of Regrowth, which is a great choice against Mulan, first off. Healing yourself makes it harder for the Mulan to hit you with the arrow, which will pull you in, which is great for XL, who doesn't have an escape. Also helps against dodging Anubis' stun. Again, she doesn't have an escape, or even potentially getting away from Fenrir, although he's got a lot of options. That probably wasn't going to help a whole lot against Fenrir. But, again, it would also help dodge Neith's Spirit Arrow. So the Breastplate of Regrowth here is a fantastic build on Ixchel. Also helped her rotate a couple of times in the mid-game as well. Great, amazing choice. Mulan built Glad Shield. She wasn't facing a physical opponent. She was facing a magic opponent. Even if Bakasur was there unless actually Bakasur was there all the time, which he was not. He did a really great job switching lanes in that match. He did a fantastic job being where he needed to be when he needed to be there. So that wasn't even true there. Yes, he ganked a couple of times over there, as he should, and he did a great job when he did so. But he wasn't there 24/7, and that does not justify the building of Gladiator's Shield in this particular instance. So Mulan really sealed her doom when she built Glad Shield as a third item. Here, she really should have built something that would have given her magic protection. She waited until her 5th damn item for magic protections. She stopped to build Brawler's Beatstick, which I don't have a problem with. Brawler's Beatstick by itself is a great item in this matchup. I mean, Ixchel heals herself, Horus heals himself, and allies. Brawler's Beatstick as an item is a strong choice here. The problem is she waited so long to build her magic protections. Yes, absolutely. We were a 4 physical team, and I'm not going to deny that, right? But having a 4 physical enemy team doesn't matter if your landing opponent is the only magic. You build the protections against your landing opponent first, then you build for the rest of the enemy team. That is solo lane. All solo lane mains know this, right? Just shout out to the random solo mains watching this. You always build the protection against your laning opponent as either your second or your third item, depending on your personal preference and how aggressive you are. That comes down to personal aggression. She did make a mistake there, and it was a pretty big one. It's why she had such a hard time this match. The Anubis' build is fairly standard, nothing really surprising there from an Anubis build standpoint. Fenrir made an interesting gamble with Transcendence. It kind of paid off for him. I'll give him that much. My issue here isn't that he built Transcendence as a third item. I don't normally advocate for stacks on junglers because it does tend to take a little bit longer than average to build them in the jungle role. The real eyebrow raiser for me is that while his team was behind, because they were starting to fall behind at that point, that he built Transcendence at that point. It was a gutsy build. It kind of worked. He did okay. But definitely a ballsy move on his part in terms of that build. I mean, his build is fine, other than the audacity of building Transcendence, which I like to see. I mean, he did full stack this despite the fact that they surrendered and that they were behind. So the Fenrir clearly at least knew what he was doing, right? But I must applaud the gumption on that one. That was, I gotta say, my only real criticism of Kumbhakarna's build is if you're gonna build, in my opinion, this is a personal preference for me. Other supports might disagree. My personal preference is to build Prophetic Cloak as a second item because it does have that internal cooldown each time you get a stack, and it's a lot faster stacking Thebes, at least in my experience. All right. especially if you're running Sentinel's Gift. If you're running Sentinel's Gift, you're going to get those assist stacks for Thebes so much faster. I recommend building Prophetic Cloak second and then Gauntlet of Thebes third if you are going to run both. Again, that's more down to my personal preference, more of an adaptation to the internal cooldown inherent in Prophetic Cloak. Yeah, I mean, otherwise I have no particular issues. I love the Horus's build. Fantastic build. Pretty similar to how I build him. I build Feyblessed Hoops earlier, though. Well, my third item is usually Manticore Spikes, so I can get that MP5 a lot of the time, and provide at least some bonus damage to my allies there with getting spikes down on the ground, right? That's a personal preference. I mean, the items he does have here on Horus are fantastic. He's got the Stone of Binding to decrease enemy protections with his crowd control, which is great. He's got the Breastplate of Regrowth. Of course, he's got the second item, Prophetic Cloak there. Lovely. The Heart Ward, I am assuming he built Heart Ward so he could get the Amulet of the Stronghold, so he wouldn't have to worry so much about his magic protections. And I think it's a just fantastic build for the Horus. Bakasur building some late game crit. He's building late game crit the right way. He's got the Boomerang. He was going to get what I assume was going to be the Deathbringer. He's probably going to follow up that with Wind Demon, if I had to take a guess. Or he was going to follow that up with some form of penetration, maybe. I'm not really sure. Pretty sure that other crit item was going to be Deathbringer, though. It could have been Rage as well. Another great item. I think it would have been a little too late for Rage, to be honest. You can see, by the way, where Scotty was working on the Hydra's Lament right there, which is fantastic. But yeah, I mean, to some extent, this was... A lot of this victory was the enemy build here, alright? And there are a couple of things to note here. Now, I mentioned that I didn't have any particular problem building with Kumbhakarna's build other than his order of items there, but I would also like to point out that he probably would not have needed both Prophetic Cloak and Gauntlet of Thebes against a 4 physical comp. Alright, to be completely honest, he could have full built physical and then thrown in a Amulet of the Stronghold towards the middle and run completely with that and been totally fine. Right, because again, we were a 4 physical comp, we were not hitting hard magically, so he really didn't need the dual protections. Even in those circumstances, I could still understand Prophetic Cloak for the sake of getting that aura out there and the cooldowns. But the Kumbhakarna didn't really... I mean, his build is fine. His build still works really well even against our composition, and it does look like he was working towards that Amulet of the Stronghold as his last item there. But the Mulan messed up by building Glad Shield as the third item. She should not have. Neith should not have built Atalanta's Bow as a second item. She should have built either something that would have given her far more power in terms of her abilities, right? Hydra's Lament maybe, the Crusher, an early Crusher maybe, that would not have been my top pick there, but it would have been better than Atalanta's Bow in the circumstances. Ideally, she would have built Transcendence, right? She already has a self-heal, so she doesn't really need Leather Cowl as much. Right, she could have gone full hog Bluestone, or she could have gone full hog most anything else, really. Been totally fine. But the Neith, that item 2, Atalanta's Bow, and then building Bloodforge from behind is just not... It's just not going to work. Other than that, and just the absolutely amazing presence of Horus. Horus did a great job. I just want to give a shout out to the Horus of being everywhere. The Kumbhakarna's gameplay, by the way, I would like to point out, other than that weird moment where he chased down Horus and I in the early game with that root for some reason, other than that one moment, he did very well for himself. He was where he needed to be. He was helping his teammates. And he was, he had a noticeable presence. I chased after him under tower and died like a goofus. But that was entirely my fault. That was not anybody else's. That was fully my decision. It was fully the wrong one. I'll be really honest. It was a terrible decision. But, yeah. For the Anubis' problem was primarily the matchup. I know a lot of people will say, oh, Anubis is great against Scotty. Personally, in my experience, having been on both sides of that fight, both as the Anubis versus the Scotty and as the Scotty versus the Anubis, since both are fairly popular right now, and in fact, Scotty's been fairly popular for quite a while now, but anyways, yeah, I can honestly tell you that whether or not Anubis wins a fight with Scotty depends entirely on whether or not he hits his stun, and if Scotty runs over her ice and gets that move speed boost, she can be harder to hit with that. And the Scotty, given her score, I am assuming that she had the skill to dodge that, probably at least partially under the influence of the ice. Alright? But, with that being said, thank you all very much for joining me. If you liked this, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, please ignore me. And we'll see you next time if we have, hopefully I'll have a jungle match next time. But anyways, thank you all very much for joining me, and have a great 24 hours.